What is the topic here today? I don't need a lawyer. The top 5 planning mistakes families make or people make when they don't use a lawyer, and why it can cost your family hundreds of thousands of dollars or more, even if you're not wealthy. And certainly if you do consider yourself wealthy, it's probably higher stakes. That's what this is about. We're going to give many examples of the mistakes that families make when they avoid lawyers or when they work with lawyers who don't specialize in estate planning and long-term care planning and elder law, and why it's so important to have a great team around you. And we get it. Life is complicated. There's laws and regulations to deal with, obviously taxes. Nobody likes that, but they are a fact of life. And family issues. Every family is different. We've worked with thousands of families. No two family stories are alike. There are interesting dynamics. There are challenges. There are issues that you have to deal with, and your legal plan has to address this. And small planning errors can undo every good financial move you've made throughout your entire life. I think that's really important. Every time you take the cheaper hotel room rather than the oceanfront room, every time you fly coach rather than business class, every time you get the chicken rather than the filet mignon, every time you go for the upper deck seats rather than the lower deck, you're doing that to save money and to capture value for your family. You do that over thousands of decisions. One bad planning mistake can undo all of it. Making the smart moves and having the right team can save you and your family so much. And after you watch this webinar, you will be the smart money. You will be the side of society that gets it, that's taking the right steps, that builds the right team. And maybe it's not you, by the way. If you're watching this, maybe this is something you should share with those members of your family, especially parents who hate paying for lawyers, hate getting expert advice because they think they can do it themselves. They want to do their own research. This is not an area to dabble. Get that expert team together, and planning with experts is the smartest investment you can make. And we're going to show you why. Talk is cheap. Let's give you some examples. So Mike, why don't you go over the agenda today?
Sure. So we're gonna certainly tell some stories. They will illustrate the cost of not hiring a lawyer. And we said 5. I mean, that's arbitrary. There's some wisdom in media. I think that you always want to say 5. So we said 5. Could have made it 20. Could have made it 30. So many mistakes. And by the way, believe it or not, we don't know everything. I mean, I barely know how to spell bankruptcy. We don't do that kind of law. We focus. You have to focus. So we're not saying we're the best at and know everything, but in this area of law, yeah, we certainly believe that we're the best. We have to believe that. We have to look at ourselves in the mirror and on webinars and be very confident. So we're going to talk about, we've selected 5 leading mistakes, things that we see happening all the time when people try to do it themselves. And really importantly, well, I had a lawyer do it. Well, is it a lawyer who understands? I'm a certified specialist by the State Bar of California. It's kind of a high bar. We write a lot of articles for other attorneys. So yeah, attorneys, should be involved, but it isn't always the right attorney. Sophisticated, understanding what's going on. So this theme is the smart money, knowing where to invest your time and your money to make sure that you're protected, to maximize benefits. So, and we always stress, by the way, as we say at the bottom here, this is an educational webinar. We're not giving specific legal advice. Even though many of you on the webinar are our clients, where we do have an attorney-client relationship, by participating in this, of course, that doesn't create that relationship. If we haven't yet done it, I'm sure we will at some point. So we go forward, much to cover. We do want to acknowledge this. Is this self-serving? Well, yeah, it is. We're proud of the fact that we know what we're doing. You're here because you know us. You know that we know what we're doing. We just like to make it, we want to have a little fun once in a while. We thought this topic would get some attention. You understand the impact of planning, the impact of expert advice. That's what we provide. We're going to say it again. We want you to be emissaries. You have family members who think they're so smart because they didn't do this or they didn't do that, and they're taking shortcuts and they're making enormous mistakes. Honestly, we could list the top 15, 20 mistakes that attorneys make, that most of us make every day.
And for those of you who don't know us, we just want to give a brief intro. We are Gilfix and the Pole Associates. We're based in Palo Alto, California, but we serve clients throughout the state of California, from San Diego up to Wairika, serves thousands of Bay Area and California families, especially in this day and age of Zoom. We work with families everywhere in the state, and we're very proud of our heritage. Mike was one of the founders of the field of elder law, really helped to create it in the early 70s, over 40 years now. That's incredible.
Wow.
And really, and we've saved hundreds of millions of dollars or helped families to protect hundreds of millions, if not more, in assets over the years. And our goal is to provide extraordinary value and peace of mind. We want to be your thought partners and your planning partners. It's not just something that we want to create documents for our clients. We want to spread the word. We want to educate the community, and we want to be partners to families over many years. And it's been a pleasure of mine to get to know so many families over the last few years. And Mike knows even more families. So it's pretty, we're very proud of where we are, and we want to educate and spread the word. And that's what this is about. So let's jump into the story. So Mike, why don't you talk about the cheap online will?
This is one of my favorites, because I can't tell you how many times I've heard. KCBS used to have a regular running advertisement for some outfit that did cheap wills. It stopped a few years ago, maybe because people caught on and they stopped doing it. But this repeats itself constantly. Okay, Dad hated lawyers. I think we've heard that a few times. Went online, got a form, paid $50. Sometimes they're free, by the way, to do these simple online wills, no doubt. Paid $50 and was so self-satisfied. Giddy. He was giddy. He beat those lawyers. He didn't have to pay anything. His estate was about $1 million. He didn't think it was that much, mostly his condominium. Okay, so what does this mean? How does this translate into reality? It cost his family about $40,000 plus. Why? Because if you only have a will, you know this. If you only have a will, or if you have nothing, no will or a will, it means you're going through probate. One of the myths out there is that if you do a will, you're avoiding probate. Doing only a will asks for probate. Again, you guys know this. Fees.
What is probate, by the way, for those who don't know?
Sure. Yeah. Probate means you have to take that the estate is going to be administered by the judicial system. You have to go to court. You have to file a petition to get it open. A judge oversees the process. Many tedious steps have to be taken to give notices, to ultimately have a judge's approval to distribute the estate. Fees, very importantly, are set by statute. It's not a matter of how much work there is. We were unfortunately not hired in an enormous probate matter where the legal fees by statute, because it's a percentage of the size of the estate, the legal fees were actually over $400,000. We were not the lawyers handling the estate. The lawyer didn't have that much to do for a lot of reasons. But again, it's out of the attorney's hands. It's set by statute. So what happens with a $1 million estate? A judge looks at the size of the estate, $1 million, looks at the probate code, the statute, which says that if an estate is $1 million, the fee for the attorney automatically is $25,000. The executor of the estate also gets $25,000. So that's $50,000 in fees for the probate. Then come court fees. That could be a few $100s, not insignificant. Okay, so obviously by setting up a revocable trust, you avoid that. That's one of the best known benefits of a revocable trust. There would have been some fees upon the individual's passing. The maximum fee in our office, maximum, would have been $10,000, 1% of the estate, often less. But again, by going through the trust administration process, we're not bound up in the court system. Again, I'll say it again, nobody wants to be or should be in the court system. You always want to avoid that. So we can still capture additional benefits. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about trust administration. So here, the cost of avoiding a lawyer, Dad went to his grave happy. God love him. That's fine. He was happy. Let him be happy.
For the kids.
But but his kids lost about $40,000. And, more importantly, aggravation. They had to deal with court system.
Probate sucks. If you like the DMV, if you like dealing with the IRS, if you like being held up in bureaucratic hell, you would love probate. So this is for the kids out there whose parents don't want to hire a lawyer. This is really for you.
That's where we use that very sophisticated legal term when we describe it. We say it sucks. There's a legal term for you.
Yes. Let's talk about story number 2, outsmarting the system. So again, Dad hated paying lawyers. Dad was an engineer. He loved doing everything himself. He loved doing his own research. He was aware of the issue that Mike just flagged of wills causing probate. He can outsmart the system. He owned a house worth $1.6 million. He only paid $100,000 for it decades ago. He only had one daughter. And he said, hey, I don't want to deal with probate. I'm gonna figure out how to outsmart the system. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna transfer this house to my daughter right now. I'm gonna give it to her. Hey, wonderful. She doesn't have to deal with probate. We don't have to deal with lawyers. Fantastic. Let's do it. Big, big, big mistake. And we see families who come to us sometimes where a parent did this before they met with us, and it can be a big challenge. What happens if he transfers it to his daughter? Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about Prop 19, but under California law, if he transfers it to her, if she's not living there, property taxes will immediately spike from what he was paying, about $3,000 a year, to $19,000 a year. Right off the bat, the moment he transfers that tax rate increases. And his daughter wanted to keep the house as a rental. So he passes away a year later. It's already in his daughter's name. She says, I wanted to keep it as a rental, but property taxes are so expensive. I can't afford to keep it anymore. I'm going to sell it. Uh-oh. $400,000 in capital gains taxes when she sells it. Why? Because dad gave it to her while he was alive. So she inherited dad's cost basis of $100,000. So she sells it for 1.5, 1.6 million. He bought it for 100,000. He gave it to her while he was alive. Her cost basis is also $100,000. The gain is 1.4, 1.5 million. 30% plus of that goes to the IRS. If he had just held on to the house, let's forget the property tax issue, which we could have dealt with if they had met with us. If he had just simply kept the house in his estate and had a proper plan, when he passed away, when it went to his daughter, she would have gotten a stepped up cost basis. Capital gains taxes would have vanished. So that alone would have saved his daughter over $400,000 if they had just gotten good advice and worked with an attorney to deal with this real estate issue. And there could have been other steps taken to lock in low property taxes. We're going to address that in just a little bit more, but we can keep low property taxes. So his daughter could have not only gotten the stepped up basis, but kept dad's very low property taxes. So we're talking about not just $400,000 in savings, maybe hundreds of thousands more if you combine future property tax savings. So he did not outsmart the system. I hate to say it. And we see stories like this. We've seen many stories where people come to us after this happened trying to say, hey, can we fix this? And often we can't if it already happened a while ago. So don't try to outsmart the system. Let's talk about a different situation.
Yeah, before going to the next one, another observation about this situation, which we're going to see repeat itself time and again because of the upset about Proposition 19 and the new law that just generates enormous property tax increases. Money was lost here. But, the other thing that was lost here was the family home. And it's so important to so many families that the family home stay in the family. And the unfortunate fact is that there are tax issues that make that more challenging. Not our creation. I mean, it's terrible, some of these developments. So being passive, not understanding and not dealing with it, you're losing money. You're also losing something of a family legacy, which I view as at least as important in so many cases. Absolutely. So let's move on to another situation where damage can be done. I mean, affirmative damage can be done by not planning properly. This involves money, but it involves a lot more than money. Okay, here, this time mom hated lawyers. Maybe she just didn't know. Okay, hated lawyers. She didn't do the proper thing. She had a couple of kids. I think she had 4 kids. This is based on a very real situation, unfortunately. One of her sons, John, had mental health and serious addiction problems. The estate was about $2 million, a house plus some other investments. Went to a trust mill. Went to an attorney where she filled out a form in the waiting room explaining how she wanted the estate distributed. She said 4 kids, 4 equal shares. The attorney spent about 10 minutes with her, said, I see that you've answered all these questions, did the trust. The estate goes in equal shares to all 4 kids. Okay, so what does that mean? What happened here? Each kid inherited $500,000. John, remember John's situation. He's got serious addiction problems. He's got mental health problems. When somebody with that profile inherits a substantial amount of money, what's going to happen with that money? It enabled his abuse. It got worse. He had all this money suddenly. Family members tried to intervene, but it just became impossible because he owned the money. There was no conservatorship in place. it created just a horrific situation. He wasted money. His health got worse because of increased drug abuse. Some friends took advantage of him. What should they have done? Nothing incredibly sophisticated. You're aware of the special needs trust. She should have been advised that any amount of money set aside for her son, John, should have gone into a special needs trust. Not only would somebody else have been the manager of that money and protected that money for him, but he would have been eligible for a number of government benefits that could have provided him with income, health insurance, and maybe even housing. But that was all destroyed, at least in the short run, by giving him a pile of money and giving him control of those assets. So when one does planning, it's so essential. I mean, here's the real lesson. We have to know the family situation. It takes a little bit of consultation time to do that. We are as much counselors as we are attorneys, counselors in the human communication sense. We have to peel back the layers of the onion to get down to the core and see what's really going on before we can craft an appropriate plan. So in her situation, maybe money was saved. She did the trust, but the cost was an assault on her son's well-being. Unexpected. She didn't understand the issues and the options. Small tragedy.
Yeah. And if you have questions about special needs trusts, I know many may not be familiar with that. We have many webinars on that in our Gilfix Law YouTube channel, and we co-authored a book called the Special Needs Trust Creation and Management Guide. That's a huge issue. But many nuances can affect how you create your plan, and it can be tragic. We've seen situations where the wrong kids inherit money directly. Let's talk, circling back to some property issues that affect so many families. So mom and dad own an income property in Sunnyvale for decades, and it provided them with wonderful income, and they wanted to save it for the family. They really wanted it to be there for their son to support him for the rest of his life. They paid, the property was worth $1.5 million. They paid only $200,000 for it many years ago. Property taxes only about $4,000 a year. They didn't want to deal with lawyers. They didn't want to pay for it. It's annoying. They don't want to deal with that. So they heard about transfer on death deeds. Hey, it's a way to avoid probate. It's a way to avoid lawyers. It's simple. It goes from us to our son when we pass away. And hey, you get a stepped up basis, right? Because it's in their estate when they pass away. So it avoids the issue we flagged earlier. But hey, here's the problem. When they pass away, Prop 19 kicks in. It's a rental property. There are no protections against property tax increases. So when it goes to their son, property taxes jump from $4,000 a year to over $19,000 a year. The son is sophisticated. He understands that rental properties are good investments, and he wanted to hold on to it. He didn't want to sell it. So he keeps it, and he keeps renting it out, and it makes some money. But every year he's losing $19,000 or more that he would have had as additional profitability if his parents had planned, because they didn't take any steps to prevent that massive property tax increase. If they had worked with our firm, Gilfix and Lopole Associates, via our Dynasty LLC process, they could have locked in their low property taxes for their son's future. And they could have still benefited from that stepped up in basis. So if they ever needed to sell it, he could do so with minimal or no capital gains taxes. So the cost of avoiding lawyers, and this is a very common story we're seeing now. I've had 3 or 4 families contact me in the last few months saying, hey, our parents passed away and we just inherited this property, taxes went up. Can we do anything to get them back down? And often it's too late. If they come to us while the family's still intact, while mom and dad are still around, we've helped hundreds of families to lock in low property taxes. And this is a very specialized area of law, and very few families even know about this issue. I know for every family that comes to us, that talks to us and understands this, there are probably 10 or 20 families that have no idea. We have a lot of webinars on our Gilfix Law YouTube channel about Prop 19, about property tax issues. The key here, though, is the cost of avoiding lawyers is hundreds of thousands of dollars over time and maybe more if you want to hold on to that property. If you sell a property and you buy a new one, hey, property taxes are higher. So it's a one-time opportunity to hold on to low property taxes if you plan ahead. So once you lose it, it's gone forever. Again, the cost of not working with expert attorneys, hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you own rental property, you need to be aware of this.
And this makes the point, by the way, of the many webinars that we have on our Gilfix Law channel. If you're going to refer one, if you're going to tell your friends or family members about just one, because there's so many, you don't want to be overwhelmed. they should look at one of our webinars about Proposition 19 and property tax, because that is a looming issue for every property owner in the state of California.
Yeah.
Every
And,
property owner.
And I think it's called How to Preserve Low Property Taxes, very creatively titled.
Yes.
And we have a couple on that.
We do lack imagination sometimes. Okay, but it works. It works. Okay, number 5, trust administration. So you have a trust. We did it. Somebody did it. The estate has to be administered. Somebody has to deal with the trust, implement its terms, make sure that the assets are properly distributed.
When someone passes away.
When someone passes away, right. So here's the son who's named as the trustee. It's his responsibility to see to it that the trust is properly administered, taxes paid, if any, all of the steps that have to be taken. And there are many. We have a massive checklist we go through whenever we're responsible for the trust administration process. Well, he met with an attorney and he said, your fees are ridiculous. I'm not going to pay all that money. Went to his friendly neighborhood CPA, somebody he's been working with for years. And the CPA said, look, I can do that. I know the basic tax form that has to be filed. Then you distribute the assets, kept it kind of simple. He did pay about $10,000 less in trust administration fees. This was, by the way, a $7 million estate. Importantly, this was this is a true case. This is an actual case. One of our clients for whom we did a trust. So we're not making anything up here. At the time, the level of estate tax protection was $5 million. Remember, this is a $7 million estate. Okay, so what happened? What's the story here? The CPA realized they had to put a value on the real property. So the CPA contacted a realtor friend who did an appraisal and came up with what the dollar figure was, and relied on that. The CPA did not go to an appropriate individual to get the appraisal done. It has to be a certified appraiser, which is expensive, or you have to go to somebody called a probate referee. The IRS presumptively accepts appraisal work done by a probate referee, not an appraisal done by a realtor. They understand that realtors have mixed motives, don't have the same background and training, etc. More importantly, even after getting an appraised value for the property, the CPA did not take the secondary step that can save a fortune, did not obtain what is called a discount appraisal, because some of the real property owned by this individual, he only had partial interests. It is allowed, it is actually encouraged to discount the value of such assets. And this is one example of tax savings that's actually logical. If I own 100% of an asset and I give it away, let's keep it simple, I give it away, and it's worth $1 million. The value of that gift is $1 million because the recipient can sell that property the next day for $1 million. It's very real. What if I have that property and I give a 50% interest? The recipient has a 50% interest. Can he sell it right away for $500,000? No, because there's two owners. Can't even get a loan without participation of both owners. So in a situation like this, where there's only a partial interest, we can discount the value of that owned asset because it was only a partial interest. Had that discount calculation been pursued, properly documented and honored, the value of that estate for estate tax purposes might have shrunk by $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. So failing to obtain a discount on a partial ownership asset lost an opportunity, a tremendous opportunity. The tax that was paid here was in excess of $400,000. In most situations, because of the opportunities allowed, we can make let's just say conservatively, maybe in this case, $1 million worth of the estate disappear by taking advantage of so many opportunities that a sophisticated trust administration attorney can obtain. Francis LaPole in our office, he manages all of our trust administration matters. Many of you know he is an extremely savvy, experienced tax attorney. After he went to Stanford Law School, like I did, he worked for a giant firm, Fenwick & West, international law firm, did tax planning there, and now he is our guru on these issues. So many opportunities to get a reliable appraisal, to get a discount calculation, to save a small fortune in taxes by properly pursuing the trust administration process. So here, by taking a shortcut, by using a CPA who really didn't know what he was doing, lost at least $300,000. The family may never know that. They don't even know that they lost, right? After the fact, one of the family members discovered this, but painful
Yeah,
to not take
and
advantage.
here's a couple of points as I listened to you there. One, a lot of the stuff, it sounds complex because it is. Hey, all the more reason why you need that expert team to help. And two, think about the fact that all these dollar amounts we're throwing out there, losing 300,000, losing 500,000, losing hundreds of thousands. This is after tax money. So let's say the family lost $300,000 in taxes. For them to make that back, you're taxed on income, right? So $300,000 saved is really the equivalent of earning about $550,000, $600,000. So it's really not losing 300,000. It's really like the family will have to earn another $600,000 in the future, because after taxes, that's what it takes to get that $300,000 back. So these numbers, keep in mind, multiply them by 1.8, 1.9, depending on your tax rate, to get what it really will cost you to make up these losses. So the impact of this planning, it's hard to grasp. We love investments. We see the value go up. That's easy to see. It's harder to grasp saving money, but that's actually more powerful. If an investment goes up in value, you see it on paper. It looks so powerful, but you're going to have to pay capital gains. You have to pay income tax on that. Ironically, saving money is more powerful because that's money you're not going to get taxed on. So it's another interesting concept that I think about a lot. Mike, why don't you go through some of the 5 leading mistakes, and we could probably make a list of 30, but 5 of the leading mistakes people make when they plan for themselves and don't even talk to a lawyer. You're muted, by the way. Dad, yeah. And one of
There
them.
we go.
There you
Okay.
go.
Leading mistake, failing to get the mute button off. That's the leading
Yes.
mistake here. Okay. So in a way, this is a summary of points that we've already made. Using any simplistic service that promises implicitly or explicitly shortcuts when they don't deliver. Just doing a will. You know that now. Transferring title to real property, ignoring the capital gains and property tax implications. This is the problem we're going to see recurring and recurring and recurring over time. It's going to cost folks, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions over time. I mean, it's truly, truly shocking what the impact of the property tax changes are going to be. Transfer on death, shortcut designations to avoid probate, to avoid using a trust. It works when it works, but we can make a list of the reasons why it's not a good idea, why it can create more problems than anything else. Leaving money to an incapable child. We had the example of the child who had addiction and mental health problems. Perhaps that's obvious. What's closely related here is leaving money to a capable child without capturing benefits and protections. You're familiar with many of our webinars where we talk about dynasty trusts. By leaving assets directly to a child, that works. It seems right. It seems simple, but it loses such an incredible opportunity by not utilizing a dynasty trust. Child gets all the benefits of the money, controls the money, protecting the money from divorce, from litigation, and keeping all of that money out of that child's taxable estate. So not knowing about it. That's number 5. I mean, that's the big one. You don't know what you don't know. It's our job to look at your fact situation, to a client's fact situation, and say, look, there's this opportunity, there's that opportunity, there's these options. You don't know what you don't know. Many of you are in our Peace of Mind program. Quite a number of you utilize your annual hour to come in and say, look, what should I be thinking about? I mean, some of you have issues you want to review with us, but I think it's one of the smartest questions you can ask. Look at my situation. What should I be thinking about? What don't I know that I should be aware of? And what steps might I take to address that gap? So that's the big one, just not knowing.
So now let's talk about the 5 leading mistakes by unsophisticated attorneys. So let's say you'd worked with a lawyer, or your parents worked with a lawyer a while ago. Maybe that lawyer is a business law attorney and they do some estate planning on the side. Maybe they're your family friend, or maybe it's just a very cheap estate planning law firm. They do trusts at a flat, super cheap rate, everything included, no questions asked. And that's the problem. No questions asked. They are incentivized to make it as quick and efficient as they can. So they'll make it seem like they're covering everything, but hey, what are they missing here? One, they generally low cost legal services create simple trust, whether it's an online service like LegalZoom or whatever. Even I guess they have attorneys sort of connected to that, or just an inexpensive service. Simple trust. It ignores complex family issues because they don't ask those detailed questions and they don't follow up. Sometimes that's the most important part of our discussion, is those comments at the end of the meeting where we're like, wait a second, you have flagged something that could be massive and we address it. Two, failure to address estate tax exposure. So Mike gave an example in a trust administration process, but the estate tax exemption, it's currently very high, 12.92 million per person, but it's set to drop by 50% in just a couple of years. So if you own a house in California, if you have any other assets, you might have exposure. We have a webinar on estate tax planning for high net worth families. There are so many steps we can take to save, and I'm not exaggerating here, millions of dollars in estate tax exposure if you plan ahead. If you're not sophisticated in this area, you don't do any of that. Prop 19 and property taxes. We know that we're differentiated there because we have a lot of other attorneys asking us for help on this. It is really, really challenging to plan to keep low property taxes in place for future generations. This is something that's hit so many families so hard. Failure to address this, hey, just leave the properties to your kids. Let's not worry about this. It can be hundreds of thousands of dollars, even if it's just one property. Failing to protect assets if you need long-term care. So if you need to go to a nursing home down the road, there are steps we can take. And I hope you never need that, but there are a lot of steps we can take to protect assets and still get help from the government in paying for that. So the rules in that area are in flux, but you need to be prepared. You need to make sure your documents address this ahead of time. We can make sure that's in place. And as Mike alluded to before, even if you're working with an attorney and you have a trust in place, well, you are probably missing opportunities to protect assets for future generations. One, special needs planning. If you have a child with a disability, you need a special needs trust, and it needs to be a separate document. It shouldn't be part of yours. We have many webinars on our Gilfix Law YouTube channel. Subscribe, like that. Check that out if you want to learn more about special needs trust. And it might not just be where a child with a disability. It could be a child with substance abuse issues or someone who's just really bad with money. You're concerned. We want a protective trust in place for that child. Or two, what if the child's thriving and sophisticated? Don't leave money to them in that case either. Create a family protection trust, generically known as a dynasty trust, to protect them from divorce and lawsuits and future estate taxes. Mike just had an article in Bottom Line magazine, a national publication. It's an amazing magazine. They're fantastic. So bottomlineinc.com, by the way, just search Michael Gilfix and you'll find his article on dynasty trust. We also have a webinar on dynasty trusts as well. So you're probably missing that opportunity as well, or it's probably going to be structured the wrong way. If you don't know this area of law, it is very tricky to structure things the right way. So I think we've given a lot of examples. As Mike said, we could probably give another 30 or 40 examples. But as I mentioned before, you've worked hard your entire life. We know how hard our client families have worked to build the estates that they have, to buy that house, to buy the rental, or to put money away for retirement, or to save. All those decisions, all those hours at work, all that hard work that went into it. And if you don't invest in the right legal advice, if you don't bring that team together, ideally an integrated legal and financial team that works together, and we're working on building that for our client families, you're missing out on so many opportunities, and you might make mistakes that could cost your family so much and undo all of that great work you did. The return on investment of working with experts who live and breathe this can be extraordinary. And I know it's hard to grasp. Again, as I said, if you're investing and you see the money, the value go up, that's a lot more fun. It's a lot easier to see than money that you're saving. And that's where we can really help. But it's not just about saving money. It's about making sure that your kids are protected from themselves. It's about preserving your legacy. So it's not just taxes. It's not just asset protection. It's about what you care about. It's about keeping your values in place for the next generation, enabling your kids to live their best lives in whatever way that makes sense. And you don't know what you don't know. There's a lot of areas of law that I am not an expert. I don't know what I don't know in family law or in some areas of business law, but this is where we focus, and this is where we've helped thousands of families. So how can you get your family into that category of the smart money? How can we help? Well, if you haven't worked with us yet, we would invite you to set a planning meeting in a very meeting, we can really dig into these issues and make sure that we're addressing all of the issues we talked about here. Family dynamics, special needs planning, if that's a situation that you face, property taxes, capital gains taxes, estate taxes, long-term care asset protection. There's a lot going on, I know, but we can make sure we bring it all together. And if you worked with us in the past, hey, laws and situations change, so let's review. Let's make sure that we're addressing your up-to-date situation, and we can help bring it all together for you. And maybe it's not just about taxes. Maybe it's just family dynamics. Maybe the people you named in previous documents no longer make sense to step in and help you out if you need it. So we want to make sure that all these complex family issues are addressed, and we can help potentially save hundreds of thousands or $1 millions in unnecessary tax exposure. There are so many situations where that can apply. So we'd invite you to contact us. It's very easy to find us at gilfix.com, or you can call us at 650-493-8070. We've helped thousands of families throughout the state of California. If you are in California, we can help you. You don't have to be in the Bay Area. And again, if you are already a client, you know us, but there's someone in your life who needs to hear this, please share this webinar. It's on our YouTube channel, Gilfix Law Webinars. You can please like it, comment, but share it. If you have a parent or a grandparent who needs to do this to help you out, share this with them. We have many adult children who paid for their parents to do legal planning because, they're the ones who benefit. It's not just mom and dad. So, I hope you got a lot out of this, but taking these steps, bringing that expert team together, and we'd love to be that part of that team for you. The power can be extraordinary. So we gave many examples. As we've said, there are hundreds of other examples we could give about the errors made when people don't work with expert attorneys in this area. Yes, it's self-serving, but we believe in what we do. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't believe in the value we can provide to families. So we hope to get the chance to connect with you. We do have a couple good questions.
Yeah,
So it's great to connect with you. So please reach out. If you haven't subscribed to our Gilfix Law YouTube channel, like this if you're watching it there. Let's get to some questions.
Sure.
Mike, why don't you
I see two. One from Jeff is, what is peace of mind and is it available? We have a peace of mind program available for our clients for whom we did trusts. It's very low cost. Members have a free annual hour where they ask any kinds of questions on any topic. We have other webinars only for them, many other benefits, a whole litany of benefits. We have about 450 happy clients who participate in the program. So it is available, but again, only if we did your trust, because many of the updates that we do for nothing depend on our having already done the initial trust and the initial planning. Second question. So if you're not yet a client, you have to become one. If you are a client and we did your trust, you can sign up at any time. Second question is the comment, my attorney said, I don't need a dynasty trust because my estate is only, and only is in quotes, $4 million. I have no estate tax exposure. I respectfully disagree with that. Number one, that the comment from the attorney certainly suggests that he or she understands that assets that go into such a trust are not in the child's taxable estate. But the point is, it's not about your taxable estate. Leaving money to your child means that all the money that goes into that trust, plus all the growth, is not part of your child's taxable estate. So if that person, if you have one child and they inherit 4 million and they grow it to 6, 7, 8, 10, by the time they die, they could have estate tax exposure. So it should be done for that reason. And also the dynasty trust delivers divorce protection, litigation protection. So I sure disagree with that. And I believe it should be done. 80-90% of our clients have done that for their kids.
Yeah, I've had 2 or 3 clients in the last 3 weeks dealing with very messy separations and divorces. So that divorce protection alone, it's kind of like creating a prenuptial agreement for your child. So again, if you want to learn more about dynasty trust, well, Mike just published an amazing article again in Bottom Line magazine. So just go to bottomlineinc.com. You can look up Michael Gilfix. His article will come up. It's on our website as well. If your client will give you an easy copy of that. We also wrote a book called Mike wrote a book called Beat Estate Tax Forever that has a great summary of that. Beat Estate Tax Forever. It's available on Amazon. It's also available to our clients if you have more questions about that. Any other questions that you wanted to address, Mike, before we wrap this up?
No, I just, thanks to everybody for being here. Again, you're probably already true believers. We appreciate your being here. We thought we'd just do this for fun and to try to get the message out there so that people can understand and appreciate more deeply the value that we deliver that, any really competent attorney can deliver. So be emissaries, be emissaries. Go for
Yeah,
it.
I would just want to push back a little bit there. Any competent attorney, there are plenty of competent attorneys who don't understand the nuances of estate planning, long-term care planning, and elder law. So, again, self-serving, but you need to work with someone who lives and breathes this, not someone who dabbles in estate tax, in estate planning. So again, I more importantly though, just make sure you get some expert help. We hope it's us. But if not, work with somebody who knows what they're doing here. It's so powerful. Please spread the word, share this with someone who can benefit from it. Like the video, subscribe to our YouTube, Gilfix Law YouTube channel. But most importantly, we hope you are staying safe, sane, and healthy, as my mother likes to say. And we hope you had a good time learning with us. And we look forward to reconnecting with you next week or in other webinars or in person in a meeting to help your family out. So take care and be well.
Take care all.